Welcome back, everyone, to another episode here on the Business Breakthrough New York podcast. Today, we have a very special guest that started out in a full-time position in a career as an administrative healthcare professional turned entrepreneur. And I know there's a lot of you out there that are in this position that are potentially in a career or you're working full-time and you're curious about how do I make this transition? And so that's one of the reasons that we wanted to bring on our special guest today. She's going to walk us through some of the obstacles that came up. And there's actually a very interesting twist in this journey that we're going to cover that some of you may not be anticipating, but hearing it from our guest, it may open up your eyes to the broader scope of what entrepreneurism can actually look like. So without further ado, I want to introduce to everyone, Laura.
Hi.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
Okay, good.
Wonderful. We'll take the okay rounding up to good. That's
Yes.
Wonderful. If you wouldn't mind, I'm curious to dive into the background. We're going to start at the beginning when you were this healthcare administrator. Mm-hmm. And what was the inspiration to branch out from that to go into entrepreneurism? To start your own business?
Burnout. That was a motivating factor. When we kind of chatted on the phone initially, I don't know if I had mentioned, when I was a little girl, I had dreams of going to FIT in the city, and I was going to become an interior decorator. And, you know, life's twists and turns. I was out on my own early at 17 and didn't have anybody to guide me through the process of, continuing my education. So I was lucky enough to get a job in the healthcare field, and it was good to me. And I spent a long time doing it.
What's a long time mean?
Oh, my God. I'm going to give away my age, Matt. Not good.
We can use round figures.
Round figures. How many decades?
Well, that's an indicator right there.
4 decades almost. Wow. So when I was 17, I started working as an assistant, a medical assistant, and trained on the job. And I did that for 40 years. I had 2 very long tenures with 2 locations, one being 16 years, the other one being 18 years. I found happy homes, and I worked for great doctors, and I had great staff that we had built over the years, but I was just done, so done. And I was missing that creative element in my day. You know, my days sometimes were till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, sometimes weekends. And when I could, I would fit in anything creative that I could do. And one of the things that I started to do when I purchased my own home was I'm going to admit it, I pick up garbage from the curb that people throw away, furniture, anything really. And I would take it home and just self-taught myself how to repair, refinish. And I would spend time in my garage just doing this. And that made me very happy and content. And it was a very inexpensive way for me and a unique way. I had very unique pieces to furnish my home on a budget. So it really benefited in 2 ways.
That's amazing. And so that's actually a very powerful tip for me because I'm preparing for a move and I need to furnish my entire place. And so I'm keenly listening right now.
Okay.
I actually, ever since we had our phone call, every time that I'm driving to and from work or wherever, because I go through majority of like suburban kind of neighborhood streets to get here.
You got to go on trash day, Matt.
Today was trash day.
Oh.
And when I was driving, I saw so many pieces of furniture, and I wanted to. Every time I'm like, oh, that seems like a decent chair. I think I could do something with that. But then there's the reservation for me. I'm like, I could repair it, but I don't know if I can make it nice. So I'm curious about that for you. You said you were self-taught. Like, talk me through some of that, like the learning process to.
Right. Well, that was before YouTube. I would just play. It was my playtime. I mean, it didn't cost me anything. So if it didn't turn out the way I liked, I'd say, okay, I'll try something else. You know, and furniture is very forgiving if you kind of go slow during the process. So, I mean, I had pieces that I redid that were in my home for 10, 20, 30 years that I really loved, that were unique, that gave my home a lot of personality. And like I said, it enabled me to fill up that creative need that was sorely missing in my life for a long, long time. And it helped me to function, through the stressful times.
Yeah, so you were talking about burnout. So kind of go into that a little bit. That's something that a lot of people struggle with, even on the entrepreneur side. Can you go into a little bit of detail of what led to that burnout? Was it you were speaking about the lack of creativity? Walk us through that, because I really want to highlight this pain point and
Right.
what drove you to make the shift, and then how did the shift actually take place?
Okay, so there were a couple of things that came together. I mean, one was this, this constant need for creativity. The other was health scare. So that kind of turned my life upside down. It was a long process to go through testing and specialists and getting answers. So it was about a year and a half out of my life. And during that time, I think I remembered saying in the elevator, Columbia Hospital in the city, to my husband one day and to somebody else, that if I got through this, if I was going to be okay, that I was going to make major changes in my life, and I was going to work to be happy.
That's a powerful message.
So that was something that I think that only when you realize how limited your time here is. We all know that, but when you really face with something very scary and put in a position where, you may not have it tomorrow, it caused me to refocus everything about my life and what was important to me. And so really at that moment, when the doctor said, okay, all's good, we're just going to monitor you, I was like, okay, that's it, go time. So I made a plan to leave my job. My husband was very supportive. He said, do whatever you need to do. I had no idea where that was going to take me. And I've always been frugal since I've always just, picked up garbage on the side of the road. So I said, well, this journey has to fit into my mindset. So I signed up. First, I got accepted through the SEEP program.
It's a great program.
Yes. So, which was monumental. It was something I didn't even know existed.
And so tell people about SEEP, just so that they're aware of what it is and how it works.
Well, so through the Department of Labor, they have a special program. They know that not everybody fits into working for someone else, that people might have ideas about a business that they want to start. And they help you in terms of studying and preparing for starting your own business. So I took some online courses. Then I continued. I got a certificate from Santa Clara University through SEEP for small business administration. So from that point, I was like, okay, so I have this, but what do I want to do? So I started taking courses through Libby, which is a program through the library, and they have certification in courses for so many wonderful things.
Amazing.
So I stumbled on that resource, and at the time, we were connecting with my husband's birth family. He was adopted, and at 60, we started researching. So I found it fascinating to create the family tree and connect all the dots. I always loved puzzles, so I took a certification in genealogy research through Libby. I took a certification for interior decorating through Libby. They were courses that were virtual, and you had a test to take at the end, and you worked at your own speed. So I was really exploring. I was taking creative writing. I was taking, at the local library, I was signing up for anything and everything that said, I want to learn more about that, or, oh, that always interested me. That's what I was busy doing for about a year.
I think there's a very important lesson in there that is actively going out and seeking out your different interests to see kind of what hits, and actually you took the time to invest to go through these courses of these various things that showed up, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. I want to know more about that.
Right.
Then you actually go through the course to the point where you're getting a test, and you're taking the test, and you're passing, and you're getting the certification, and going through that kind of multiple times with these different areas of interest, that really helps for you to be able to identify what is, of those things that initially piqued your interest, which one am I actually interested in and want to potentially pursue as a business.
Right. Being that childhood dream of going to FIT and interior design, it made sense to me at that time that should be the path that I take. So I was going to create my own business, and I did. It's called Labri Artistic Interiors, and actually I worked with Walter here.
Yes, Walter Reed is a very well-known, now retired business advisor that worked here at the Farmingdale SBDC.
Yes.
He's just treasured and loved by anyone that he worked with.
Yes.
He's a very great human.
And he assisted me with all of the to-dos, with starting my business legally, filing all the proper forms, and dotting my I's, crossing my T's, creating my business plan. How was I going to market this? And so Labri launched in July of 2019. I started doing what I thought was, well, there's a key to the whole story, but what I thought was my dream. This is what I'm going to love. This is what's going to fulfill me. I'm going to be creative. I'm going to help people create, the space that makes them happy, brings them joy. I'll do it on a budget.
Which
we'll
ties
repurpose.
in. Yeah, it ties into the work that you were doing before of finding the furniture.
Right.
So when was this, year-wise?
The year
that you started the business?
July of 2019.
July. Ooh, what an exciting time that you didn't know was laying ahead of you.
Yeah. So I was in the middle of doing a kitchen renovation. I had some staging projects going on for upcoming weddings and showers. I was doing some decorating refresh for a client, new art, new textures, some new furnishings, lamps, etc. And the biggest job, though, that I had going on was the one kitchen. It was the second kitchen that I was working to design. Didn't realize how much I hated math until I was doing a kitchen. Hate it. So I'm in the middle of this, and lo and behold, we shut down for COVID. Pandemic hit.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially for your business, having that struggle because you're going into people's homes and you're spending a lot of time with them, a lot of really kind of intimate interactions where you're figuring out the way that their house is going to look.
Right.
And so
how do they want to live in that space? What do they want to use it for? Yeah.
Yeah. And so when everyone's told to bunker down, that doesn't include you bunkering down with them to do the design.
Yeah. So it was a real struggle to get the kitchen finished between supply chain issues, contractor delays. It was so stressful. I finished the job, even though it was difficult to do. And I said to myself, okay, you took this in a direction and you doing it. But you know what? It's not right,
So feeling that you had that this was not your actual calling.
That this was not something I could see myself doing. It was very stressful during that time with the supply chain issues, with dealing with contractors, but that's an everyday occurrence with interior decorating and design. So I could see that even when things started to open up, that was still going to be a part of the business. And I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with the decision I made.
This is the interesting twist that I was alluding to earlier in the introduction, is that people think that the transition is, it's rough and people are nervous about making it to go from, a full-time position, a career, 40 years and then you even spent the time, you invested, you took these courses, and you were pursuing your interest, and then you found the one that you wanted to pursue, and then you went after it. And I can see a lot of people potentially getting stuck there because, like, well, I have to double, triple, quadruple invest down because this is the decision that I made. But this is a sign of real kind of business maturity, in the sense of, if you're not going to be in it, if you can't sustain the passion, and you see the way that things are operating, and you just understand that this is not what I want, to be able to reshift focus again. So, right. And that's, I mean, that's kind of part of the journey of an entrepreneur, is trying things, getting in there, doing the work, figuring it out. And then, they have a term, serial entrepreneurs, for a reason, because people can go from business to business and do the startups and everything. But yours wasn't financially based as much as, like, a lot of people want to do the entrepreneur, start this business, get it running, sell it, go and do this one. Yours is passion oriented.
It had to be. I made that promise to myself.
Right.
In the elevator.
One of the things that I thought about when you were talking about that, because a lot of that is the time when people have the most significant shift in their lives, is when something comes up that is in like speaking, or in like public speaking, or even during shows and podcasts and things like that. There's things called pattern interrupts, where, so like right now, if we stood up, walked around and switched seats, that's like a pattern interrupt. If I stopped and said, hey, I'm going to bring this advertisement to you, like, that's a pattern interrupt.
Gotcha.
And so it breaks the flow of concentration. So there's these kind of pattern interrupts for life, where that's the only time that you really see even personality trait changes in individuals, is when either someone really close to them has a near-death experience or dies, or if the person themselves have a near-death experience, or something close to it, some life
catastrophe.
Correct.
Trauma.
Yeah, even like a house burning down, things, significant trauma in their life.
Right.
And that's where you see this big shift. And so the only thing that I wanted to mention, and they are not a sponsor of this show, I don't even have a link for you, but there are these calendars that you can get that I think help to keep this in kind of perspective for people that, like, I don't want people waiting around for this huge traumatic event to be able to make that shift.
Right.
But there's these calendars that mark off, that have these small little boxes, and each box represents a week, and it has the weeks of your life on there. So you see on your wall this giant poster that has all of these boxes that I think it goes to like 68 years old or something like that. And so it goes to that point, and so you can kind of see visually the length of your life. And so seeing that kind of puts it into this perspective where you're like, oh, I am on a limited time schedule. If I make it to there, and many people go far beyond, obviously. My dad's 84, but if I even make it to there, this is how much time I have.
Right.
And so just little ways, little tips and tricks that people can try to do to get that spur of motivation to, like, oh, I've got to, if I want to get the most out of this life and pursue my passions, if that's important to me, then I kind of got to get the ball rolling.
Right. I don't have time to,
Yes.
fool around.
Correct.
I was going to say something else.
Yeah.
And my husband always said, well, I shouldn't. My husband took this from my father-in-law, who was the greatest man who ever walked this earth. He'd always say, I'm on the back nine, and that's the way I was looking at it too. Like, I have more years behind me now than in front of me. And, physically, I feel the difference, of how I felt 20 years ago. Just I spent the weekend gardening. I mean, it happens. It happens to all of us. And I think it was a definite motivation for me to kickstart rather than to just sit back, and watch. I think, there were a couple things that came into play, that helped me with it. I would think that if I was younger, it might have been more difficult too.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good point, though.
Because I wonder what took me so long. And like, why didn't I do this before? Like, I thought that in the beginning. I don't anymore.
That's good.
But I think a lot of it comes with maturity and with age and with life experience. And, I'm at a stage in my life now that, I come first. and no job is worth, my heart and soul. And if you do what you're passionate about, you'll be successful, so it's a totally different mindset than I had when I was 30 or 40 years old.
That's beautiful.
So.
Yeah, they say that that youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry,
but we have to go through it. You have to go through it.
Right.
The only way you get that maturity is through life experience and being able to reflect and think about the life that you've lived.
And I think that's how somebody younger could really gain that insight too, is like really take the time to get to know yourself, know what your passions are, know what brings you joy. Keep a journal, talk to somebody, just don't brush off how important you are and what fills your needs. It's not always about the almighty dollar, and I was blessed enough that at this stage of my life that, I could take the chances. So it was like a perfect storm.
Right.
It was just like a perfect storm.
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm curious now about this next transition, right? The twist in the story.
Yeah, the twist.
So we're not in it anymore. We're emotionally detached from the business. So walk me through the kind of almost closure, if you will, or the defocusing on the interior design and what steps you decided to take next.
Oh, well, I was lucky enough to be a part of a peer group that was established by one of the advisors here.
Christina was on a very recent episode with another client of hers. And so, yeah,
She's my mama.
She's tremendous.
She holds me accountable, but it wasn't and still is, because we still have our peer group going 3 years later. But this all started during COVID when people couldn't meet. And it was so important for us to feel connected and to bounce things off of each other. And so Christine, I had done some of her, I can't think of the name now. There were some book reviews, Maxwell.
Oh, John Maxwell.
John Maxwell. So, we did that together. We read John Maxwell and we spoke about it virtually. And then she had this idea to start this peer group. So it was a bunch of us, all different, medical field, photographers, artists. We all came together and would meet twice a week for an hour virtually during COVID. And we talked and we shared. And that was pivotal in helping me figure out where I was going. So it was a safe place for me to talk. There was a lot of support there. And like I said, Christine is like my mama. She keeps me accountable. So if I brought up something that was an idea at the group, she was on me. Okay, did you follow up with that? Let me see what you did. And so during that process too, because everything was shut down so heavily for the first, probably about a year, I went back to the basics and started painting and refinishing furniture again to fill my days. Well, I had always kind of dabbled, but now everything's virtual. There's so many people online looking for things to do. People are sharing their techniques. Social media groups for furniture refinishers. And so it was like this whole new world opened up with what I always loved to do. And so I made a lot of connections and just started trying different techniques and products and, kind of went back home.
That's incredible. So you make the shift and you start doing this, and you decided that after you went back to the basics on the business side of things. So you're working with Christina,
trying to figure out, okay, this is interior design, interior decorating is not for me. I don't want to run a design project, but I want to be creative and I want it to be for me, and I have to figure out what that means. What it's going to be. I started making lavender, hemp eye pillows and neck pillows from vintage fabric. I mean, I was just trying anything. And again, going back to okay, give it a go. Let's see. Right. Do I like this? Can I make a few dollars? Will it make somebody happy? So
I'm very curious about that, actually, when it comes to making a few dollars, especially in the very early days. And so did you decide to make this a business before you made your first sale? Or were you just kind of selling some things that you were making along the way? How did that, I guess I'm curious about the lead up to like kind of the first sale that you made, and how did that go?
In which aspect of
And
my journey?
so the most recent one.
The most recent?
Right, yeah, the furniture refurbishing and things like that.
I'm trying to think. Well, probably one of the ones that sticks out in my mind is I picked up this curbside find, and it had been in my garage a long time, and I was playing with a friend she had a warehouse, and she was a stockist for a paint company and product company. So we had all products there. So we would spend sometimes till 2, 3 in the morning just playing and singing old tunes. And there was a piece that I created that had such a different artistic vibe to it. And I was so happy with the way that it came out.
What was it?
It was a Bombay chest.
Okay.
And it had been damaged, so I had to repair it. But it was solid maple. It was just beautiful. And I did a refinishing technique where it's a series of blending.
Do you have any pictures of it that we could find online of the finished product?
I could send it to you.
Okay.
So if you wanna, I don't know if you could add.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot. We'll try to throw it in. Yeah.
I sold it through Facebook Marketplace.
And that was
actually.
and that was going to be the question. That's kind of where my head immediately went. And I was like, that's where I would go.
Right. So I posted on Facebook Marketplace out of the warehouse, and I had somebody contact me from Delaware. And I thought first, this is a little spammy. I don't know about this Delaware. And it ends up, we're still friends. We still keep in touch. She's an amazing lady. And she drove all the way from Delaware in the pouring rain to pick up this piece because it matched her artistic vibe and her colors for her space.
How incredible.
And that was such a great feeling.
Yeah, to know that you put all the work into this beautiful piece with all this potential, you had it live up and expand outside of its potential, and to come across somebody who also has that kind of passion and love for it, where it fits. Like, what a perfect match! What a perfect way to start.
Exactly. And so it's just like, okay, this feels really good.
Yeah,
This feels really good.
a lot different than the interior design.
A lot different.
Yeah, did you ever get that feeling when you completed a project with interior design?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not the same.
Yeah.
It was still, I had so many concerns about, was the person really pleased, or I don't know. It didn't feel the same.
Right.
And then the second piece I did was for a friend who I had helped her with the renovation of her kitchen plans. And she wanted a coffee bar, but she wanted something very unique. So I recreated a beautiful vintage dresser for her coffee bar.
Wow.
And so that's still...
That's
still
interesting.
sitting
That's great. I didn't even think about like repurposing in the practice of refurbishing. So this is really allowing you to dive into those creative essences of yourself.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
So now I'm curious about the progression from there. So we've got the motivation, we've got the passion. You're feeling like you've kind of never felt before. You're in your creative space. Everything's looking very positive. So how do you start investing more time and picking up more pieces, or like tell me about the progression, I guess, from then to today.
So that was it. I just started buying more. Seeking out more. It was going from furniture to lighting to pottery. I love anything French. So
I'm curious. So when you're picking out these different pieces, what is the kind of the decision-making process? Is it just whatever you see that interests you, and then you put it out there for sale, or are you thinking like, oh, people would really like this?
Well, the telltale sign is a gasp.
Yeah, no, that's a good. Yeah.
I started listening to that and realizing that I do that. So the telltale sign is the gasp. That's a no-brainer. That's like, don't even think about it. It's coming home with me. There's just something. There's just something that speaks to me. And it may not be necessarily something that I would buy for myself, but I can see the story in it. I could see the craftsmanship in it. I could see that I could look and admire the artistry. So I really started like just loving up all of this old stuff, not just the old furniture that was on the curb that somebody threw away that was so sad that needed to be refinished, but all this beautiful old antique and vintage home decor, jewelry, scarves. I mean, it's just they don't make them like that anymore. They just don't. And I feel like the business that I'm doing now in terms of, I don't know what to call myself sometimes, a dealer, a vendor, a reseller, a curator.
All of the above.
All of the above. I don't know. But I love the treasure hunt.
Oh, that's again, all of this, there's so many people out there that this is not the business that they're looking to do, but there's so many takeaways from this of understanding what parts are really important to identify where your interest is. Mm-hmm. And I think what I can pull from that is being in love with the process, right? And so a huge part of your process is finding the treasures, right?
Researching.
Yes.
I was never a great history buff. Now I love it up. I am enamored when I figure out the story of a piece and I realize, what it went through to get here and that it's still here and how we need to honor it and find a home for it. And I think that the vision also marries a lot so perfectly to, I think, what we all feel in life right now. During the pandemic when things shut down, I saw like a lot of people going back to the basics, getting creative with things. Vintage and antique used to be kind of a dirty word. It was only for collectors. It was grandma's stuffy attic. But it's not like that anymore. There's a huge market for vintage clothing. People already realize, our landfills are full. What the energy it takes to create these items. I just read something yesterday that it takes 300 gallons of water to create one T-shirt from start to finish.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of water for a T-shirt.
That's a lot of water. And I think that's 400 million pounds of furniture ends up in landfills every year. So it's like when I think about all the energy that went into producing it and how it was crafted so well. The clothing was crafted well, the jewelry, the furnishings, and it really gives your home and your personality a sense of uniqueness that you can't get by shopping in the big box stores. I can't tell you the last time I was in one. So really, since Labri found its way, and it's a love affair, and it marries well to what's going on with the economy, and with people's mindsets, with recycling, and so I just felt like it just worked. All of it made sense to me.
So do you use those things that are tapping into the trends right now? Do you communicate the stories behind the furniture and the interest in like reducing the impact on the planet and things like that? Do you use those in your marketing messaging?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was always very conscious of that. I was always a recycler. I always didn't want to add to the burden, of the planet. And it just all makes perfect sense. It marries my creativity with my ethics about, repurposing and the creativity, the research. It's all there. So it's perfection.
Yeah, that's the perfect alignment of stars. That's beautiful. Where do these go? You have a website, and so is this where you put a lot of your messaging out? Like, I'm also curious, how do you actually sell the furniture now? Like, what are the methods of actually sharing each piece with the world, and where are they located, and where could people go and check out your stuff?
Okay. Well, thanks for the plug.
Yeah, of course.
First, I started selling on Cherish, and that is a website that initiated for interior designers and antique collectors.
And for clarity, Cherish is like a chair, like we're sitting on.
Yes,
Ish. Okay.
Correct. And I don't know what made me feel that that was a good platform for me, but it was easy to start. I put some of the higher end pieces there and got used to photographing. That was another aspect.
New skills.
New skills. So photographing, the descriptions, the tags, improving, best improvement for SEO and all that. So this is a whole other learning experience. But it was a good platform for me to start. So I did that, and then I was amassing a lot of treasures. And I said, oh boy, I gotta get a storage unit because we can't sit and eat at the dining room table, and I can't walk in the second bedroom. And
I'm loving this visual of just all of these like antique in the making pieces that need refurbishing that are just populating the house.
All over. So, and then I said, well, that's a silly thing to do. If I get a storage unit and I put it in storage, who's going to see it there? Until I put it online. If I'm going to pay for a storage, I'm going to look for a space, a retail space. So I started visiting a few local Long Island multi-vendor retail shops, and I found a home, what was called Backstreet Antiques in Huntington, and it was a charming, quirky little space.
Sounds perfect.
It was so perfect. And I started with a smaller space and then grew more. Then I opened an Etsy shop.
And so just real quick before we go to Etsy, so for those spaces, you're putting your completed pieces obviously in there?
Well, right. Anything that I refinish could go in these spaces. Also just the items that I've sourced that not everything that I buy or I source now needs refinishing.
Got it.
So some of them are just charming, vintage items.
And these are things you discovered at like yard sales, thrift shops, or
estate sales.
Estate sales.
I discovered online auctions. Ooh, that's trouble.
Yes, we see where the business
trouble.
is going to be investing a lot of money.
Yeah, big time. And then meeting people who are doing similar things. Somebody heard about somebody whose mother-in-law passed, and they were looking to clear out some of the keepsakes, and would we like to come in and shop? And so it was sourcing from a lot of different venues. And
That makes sense.
Like I said, some things repurposed, some things refinished, some things just perfectly unique and charming that didn't need any help. So I had the retail space, and that was growing. And then I opened up a shop on Etsy because I felt that would be a good platform for me now, being my inventory had expanded. It's a good platform to sell jewelry, accessories, small items, glassware, collectibles, things like that.
What's your ability on Etsy to like have a brand for yourself? Is it you have your own profile on there that people can go to your Etsy shop, and so you're able to share that, and it's not necessarily directly connected with like the rest of the Etsy world? I mean, naturally you can migrate from one to another, but I guess how do you show up there?
Well, you set up your very own little shop. So you're a little entity in this huge, platform, just like Cherish. You set up your business profile. You can add your logos.
Perfect.
You can, decide how you want to handle your marketing. You can decide, do you want to be involved in sale events or not? You can set your shipping settings up. Do you want to offer free shipping on items over X amount of dollars or not? So there's, you basically set it up the way you want to run your business.
Perfect.
You're under their umbrella.
But you can have a profile that's like the the story of the business and things like that.
Yes.
And, okay, wonderful.
Yep,
Wonderful.
all about, you get customer reviews, they have star seller, there's certain criteria that if you meet the criteria, your profile is highlighted as a star seller so people know that you ship on time. You respond to communications promptly. You know,
It's a good way to make a name for yourself.
Yes. So I felt like it was a good way for me to start. And I had to learn a whole different way of photographing too, because the criteria for that platform was different than Cherish.
Oh, how interesting.
So, but it was a journey. So, and I got there. And I probably have about 100 items on Etsy now.
Wow.
So
What's the, how do people find you on Etsy?
a VintageNestbyLabri.
And how do you spell Labri?
It's Labri.
Okay.
So
Kind of how it sounds.
and that's where I am on Cherish also.
Perfect.
Those the names of my online shops. And then through SBDC, Christina said to me, okay, you have 2 online shops, you have a retail spot, you still don't have a website. I was lucky enough to also work with one of the advisors, and he took me through handheld, and we created my website.
Wow.
On Square because I was really nervous about it. So I'm not yet using the website for e-commerce, but I can, and that is my goal for this summer.
That's perfect. You're answering questions I was getting ready to ask. Let's go.
So, yeah. So right now, at least the website's a hub. It's a landing space that people, I photograph and create the links for the new items that are both on Cherish and Etsy that I really feel should be highlighted. So, and it has links to my social media. I did a little about me. I want to do a little like stories. Like I find some of the stories on these items fascinating. I want to do more of sharing of that. And I'm going to create the e-commerce portion of it this summer.
Have you done any dabbling on YouTube yet?
No.
Oh, that face. Is that I want to, but I'm nervous, or I don't want to, but I think I should, or somewhere in between?
You're lucky you got me here when you mentioned that, you know, it wasn't just going to be audio.
I know we say podcast, I'm like, and plus video.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
I am not a good picture taker. I do not like videotapes of myself. I do not like the way I sound. I'm awkward. I've already hit this mic a few times.
Everybody does.
Yeah, I don't know about putting myself out in the front. And I know they say that's very important because your face people want to see.
Especially with a brand like yours, it's the ability for people to connect with the brand. It's hard to do it for a small business for people to connect to the brand. The brand is usually, and just for clarity's sake, what brand is, people get really confused and they get really in the weeds. It's actually very simple. Brand is reputation. That's what a brand is. That's all. It's a reputation for your business. And so for small businesses, it's much easier to establish brand or a reputation with the person. Especially, and that's not necessarily true for every single business. I mean, it kind of is, but especially for yours, and how well connected your vision, your mission, your purpose, your principles, your ethics, how all of that combines together inside of the business, and then they can associate that with you. There's a lot of power there. And I mean, it's your business at the end of the day. You do what you're comfortable with, and it seems like you're having a great amount of success as it is. So it's an avenue. It's not a requirement. It's not a requirement.
I know. There's a lot of TikTokers out there 100%. Because those videos just get so many hits.
Yes.
But for me, I don't know. You can get caught up in that too.
Yes, you can. It's actually it turns into kind of its whole own business. It's another vertical that can produce revenue on its own as well, and then it's a whole other thing to manage and to schedule and to do all. So it's not a small endeavor. I mean, it doesn't have to start robust and huge. Like I see something as simple as, like, you don't even have to speak, but if you had a couple video cameras that were recording you while you're refurbishing, and then you you can find an editor for relatively cheap and just have them do a, what do they call it, a time lapse, where it's just going through really quick of you going through this. So take a couple pictures that show up in the beginning of it, like this is the piece of furniture, here. And then it goes through this time lapse of all the work that you're doing over the days, weeks, months to get it done. And then it's there at the end. And then that's it. And then if you ever got to the point when you wanted to speak in the video when it comes to the story of the furniture, I mean, then we're putting gravy on those potatoes.
I will say my favorite TikToks, I think ever, I'm an avid TikTok user. I'm addicted. I'll admit it. It's fine. Are people who go to yard sales,
Thrifters.
they thrift, or I watch people who go to yard sales, thrift, and refurbish, and then they resell for a profit. But watching the people like peel off the paint, oh my!
There's something therapeutic about it.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, that's it. And I can see, the thing is, I get so caught up in that. So like my family, my daughter will say like, "You did take before pictures, right?" And I'm like, "No."
That alone, without going the
Yeah.
whole video YouTube route, that alone is very powerful.
I know, but
She's excited.
I'm
She wants to get
excited.
right
I'm
into
with
the
you.
refurbish.
Yeah, I know it's putting on. It's hard to shift hats to go creative hat, kind of business marketing hat, creative hat, and so you get, and then there's definitely momentum, and you don't necessarily want to stall that momentum. You get the piece, you're excited, you bring it, and you're like, I'm gonna start working on this right away.
And then I'm like, oh, nope, no photos.
Yeah.
Like, oops. But in the scheme of things, you know what? It's okay too.
Yeah.
I don't beat myself up over that.
No.
It's like, if it works, great.
Yep.
It's not something I'm very happy with where I am.
Right. You've got to flow. You've got to
I've
process.
got to flow. I'm busy. I'm tired, but it's so good. And I don't think I need to.
Yeah.
To be honest, I could see where there's a great fit for someone, but for me, I'm happy.
That's great.
Backstreet, I was there for 15 months.
Wow.
The owner sold the property, and one of the girls that I work with, who actually met with you, when she said, "You know what? I'm going to start my own business."
Oh, she's lovely. I think I know who you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So she had said to me, I just got here, like she joined Backstreet like about 6 weeks before we got the notice that it was closing. I just got here and I'm having so much fun and everybody's so great. Like, it can't end here. So I'm really excited about where I am now.
Good.
Because I feel like this is really my game got,
Well, and
leveled up.
I mean, you go back to the things causing the big transitions in your life, and what were the kind of fundamental underlying principles that you set out for yourself, which is, wanting that creativity in your life, wanting to choose passion. And so sometimes as business starts to accelerate and the business itself gets momentum, then there's always a risk of losing that passion for the sake of growth and scaling and creating more content or anything to push it. And then that can take you out of that passion space. And so it seems like you've really struck a good balance.
I think it's a perfect balance. I have my 2 online shops. We just launched a new multi-vendor antique and vintage beautiful space in Huntington. Yeah, right on 160 East Main Street. It's called The House of Timeless Treasures. And so there's several of us from Backstreet. There was also another spot that closed a month after we did. So everybody's kind of come together in this beautiful, unique space. And we've been open 3 weeks. We're having our first outdoor market this Sunday for Cinco de Mayo. Come on down.
Oh, I think
Come on down.
At what time?
10 to 5. 10 to 5.
I can get there first thing.
Yeah.
I can get there first thing. I would love to come check that out.
So it's going to be a lot of fun. So outdoors, we're going to have great deals to be had. And inside the shop, we'll be running a little promo for Cinco de Mayo. And maybe margaritas after. We don't know. But yeah, so
Every little bit just makes this more enticing.
yeah, we kind of jumped the gun on this. And we said, you know what? It's it'll be our first month open. We wanted to do something fun. We have a great space outside with lots of parking, and so we're all really excited about that.
That's incredible.
But it's really, my business is definitely leveled up. It's a whole different vibe than cute, charming, quirky Backstreet. It's definitely unique.
And is it just you?
No.
All right. I'm very curious about this.
No, so it's several of the vendors from Backstreet.
I'm sorry. I meant for your business.
For me, it's just me.
It's just you. Oh my gosh, the true, most perfect version of a solopreneur. And being able to work up to your capacity, working and within your capacity, not pushing yourself too far, within the spectrum of your passion and avoiding burnout.
Right.
That's a beautiful balance to strike.
So, and I'm there. I am there.
I love that. So I guess I want to end on one final question.
Sure.
Since we have you.
Go ahead.
Okay. So for somebody that's in that position where they're working full time or they're in a career and they've been in it for a little while, what advice would you give to them for those who are considering having in the back of their mind that maybe one day I want to start my own business?
One thing that I did do, and I know it's not for everybody, there's something called a passion planner, and it's a journal. And it really forces you to connect to the things that bring you joy in life. And it's business related, personal and business. And so I did that for about 1.5 years, 2 years in the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
You purchase them online. They're great. It's called Passion Planner. So that was recommended to me. And I think that really helped me to figure things out, without talking to too many people, really just listening to myself, going back and seeing, okay, there's a common theme here. Like I have to listen to this a little bit more and see where I can take this. So I think it's really, just slow down a little bit, spend some time with yourself, ask yourself some important questions, write about it, figure out really what makes you happy, what brings you joy, and how you can turn that into your business. How you can turn that into your full-time passion project where, you can love getting up every morning, go to sleep tired but with a smile on your face, and feel good about what you're doing every day because it's so important.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. What an incredible journey you had and are continuing to have.
A lot of twists and turns.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
But isn't that, you had said, it's, it's like that for everybody. It's the path to navigate. It's not going to be 100% easy, but you really have to stick to your gut, know what feels right, spend some good time with yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a problem that happens right now is that there's so much information out there that you can take in. I ran into this problem myself where I was listening to too many business podcasts. I was listening to too many business audiobooks and everything. I'm like, this is such a great thing. I'm going to implement that and I'm going to take this. I'm going to implement this too. But the reflection time that you're talking about, to sit down with yourself in silence, and just spending time to get to know yourself and to feel out your thoughts, give yourself that kind of mental space to be able to do it. Whether it's going out on a walk and being able to do that and then coming back and sitting down and jotting down some of the notes that you had.
Thoughts, right. Where you see your life, in 5 years. What does your life look like? Another thing I did, Matt, was I created a collage of what my ideal life would look like, and clipped things out from a magazine and made a vision board. And I hung that in my room my office for the first 2 years and looked at it every day.
Wow.
So it was a reminder to me of what would bring me joy, what would make me happy, what do I see my life looking at? And then, I had a friend say to me, well, it's not actually going to look like that with chickens and everything, is it? And I was like, well, if I'm lucky, yes. But, she's like, but it's just the vibe. It doesn't mean that it's got to look exactly like that. And I said, no, of course not. But it's just, and it's morphed, it's changed a little bit. But it was something that really helped to keep me focused. Because I think, like you said, there's so many distractions. You know, we could be like watching reels or TikTok videos and spending hours upon hours.
I like that you glanced at Sarah when you said that.
Yeah, I deleted the app from my phone because it was so bad. I had to give it up. That was like a year and a half ago. I was like, I can't do this. But yeah, I mean, we get pulled into that so easily, and it's such a time eater. You know, I mean, there's a lot of positives to it because there's a lot you can learn.
Correct.
But right.
But it can also, it can take you off the rails. Yeah, exactly.
And it just, you don't realize how much time you're losing. So,
and if you're on that train, I think it's, and you're trying to find the space, one thing that I like to do is just schedule time. And this is what I do now. And so I'll schedule time in the day that like this 45-minute block is going to be for reflection. It's going to be, there's no inputs. I'm not getting any stimulation. This is me. And when I'm at my best, that happens in the sauna. So that's my happy reflection place.
Perfect.
So
that's what we all need to find, right? Just slow it down and find that great, perfect reflection.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This was an incredible conversation.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk today. You pulled it all out of me.
Yeah, no, you did wonderful. So thank you. Thanks, Sarah, behind the cameras, over there doing her amazing work like she always does. And thank you guys. We appreciate you coming back and checking us out. I'm sure that you love this episode. So we appreciate it.